Before I begin, force click that like button and subscribe to the channel if this video resonates with you to help this channel's growth. Also, I've included timestamps in the description for those of you that feel antsy during any part of the video and want to skip around. But without further ado, let's talk Star Wars. As a lifelong Star Wars fan, the current state of the Star Wars fandom is simply tragic. I'm not going to attack any aspect of the fan base, as I feel that would be wholly unproductive. But I think everyone would agree that said fan base is absolutely fractured, and that Lucasfilm is panicking and scrambling about, trying to figure out projects to unify them around. The problem with this approach is that the fan base is more fractured than they realize. They categorize the fandom as having split into two equal pieces. One with an obsessive longing for the extended universe to be recanonized, which they write off as toxic, and one that is along for the ride with whatever direction Disney goes with the franchise, providing the quality meets a particular standard. But the divide in the fandom isn't so simplistic. It's not split down the middle. It's completely shattered. Some only want to see the lore of the Jedi expanded and furthered. Others don't want to see any of that and desire more to see how the everyman fares within the world of Star Wars. Some only care about the reign of the Empire. Others only care about the prequel era. Some desire for the storytelling to go thousands of years in the past or thousands of years into the future to chart out events on the timeline totally untouched. Some only want to see stories pertaining to the Skywalker lineage. Others are sick of always seeing recognizable characters. Some love the publishing initiative. Others don't have the means to keep up with it and don't want to feel like they are missing chunks of lore by skipping out on it. Some hail Dave Filoni as the savior of the franchise. Others have no interest in his animated projects. And yes, there are even some that want to find out where Rey, Finn, and Poe go after the events of Episode 9. And the splintered interests go on and on and on, both pertaining to the expanded universe and the new Disney canon. So what can be done? How can Lucasfilm create a game plan going forward to appeal to everyone? 3 words. Introduce the multiverse. I will go into the specifics of the proposed initiative in a second, but first I'd like to point out the obvious suggestion that the multiverse could easily be integrated through the concept of the world between worlds, which, if rumors are to be believed, was originally planned during the Ahsoka series, through Anakin's interaction with the title character during their scenes together in Episode 5 of the show. According to seemingly reliable leaks, the original plan for the episode included a segment featuring the manifestation of Anakin guiding Ahsoka through the multiverse via the world between worlds, showing her various scenarios surrounding his downfall during Revenge of the Sith, all resulting in him embracing the dark side for one reason or another. A canon event, if you will. So for the next portion of this video, let's go over some of the various universes littering this proposed multiverse that we'd have to work with. And remember, the timestamps are there if you wish to skip this overview and jump straight to my next point. Anyway, first off, of course, we'd have the expanded universe becoming a proper universe of its own. The old Infinities comics, along with the various other what-if concepts created during the lifetime of the franchise, also provide a handful of splinter branches of the timeline to fill out additional universes. Speaking of comics, I must bring up the long ambiguous canonicity of the Star Wars Tales comics. These comics, published during the reign of the expanded universe, broke the established canon of the time frequently, such as Han Solo and Chewbacca's corpses being uncovered on modern-day Earth by Indiana Jones, and had several instances of stories of questionable canon, such as a cameo in one issue from a xenomorph in the background of a panel. Lucasfilm eventually came out and declared that some stories within the Star Wars Tales comics were canon, and others weren't, dependent upon whether they contradicted previously established lore within the expanded universe or not. That whole mess having been explained, the multiverse could be used to shuffle off many of the non- and questionably canon stories into their own home universes. The newish, completely non-canon, mostly Anime Visions anthology, could be used to gift each contributing animation studio their own universe and continuity to play in going forward through whatever mediums they desire, with very little oversight from Lucasfilm. Before the finalized version of A New Hope that we got, creator George Lucas also penned 3 previous rough drafts with significant differences, the first of which was even depicted in comic form by Dark Horse Publishing. I think it would be a thoughtful and respectful gesture by Disney that would go a long way with George superfans that feel constant disrespect from Disney toward the franchise's creator if they were to give each rough draft their own places within this multiverse. In addition to the rough drafts, I think a universe should also be reserved to finally see the realization, in one medium or another, of George's original concept of his own sequel trilogy, apart from Disney's episodes 7 through 9. Now, some of you might be thinking that George's sequel trilogy should slot nicely within the expanded universe, since that was the established larger lore at the time George was creating his concept for his sequels. But you might be surprised to discover that he was actually much less beholden to the expanded universe than you might imagine. Yes, while George signed off on this project and that, and was probably given elevator pitches for each one, he mostly viewed the expanded universe as fun fanfiction for the fans, demonstrated by his declaration of multiple levels of canonicity regarding the franchise. In order of most to least, recognized by George-led Lucasfilm. G-canon, or George Lucas canon, comprised only the first 6 episodic films. T-canon, or television canon, comprised not only the first 6 episodic films, but also the Clone Wars animated movie, along with the initial 6 seasons of the series' televised continuation. C-canon, or continuity canon, comprised all of the above, along with most books, comics, and games. S-canon, or secondary canon, comprised of not only all of the above, but also the original Marvel Star Wars comics and various other fringe entries in the franchise freely encouraged to be ignored by storytellers of C-canon. D-canon, or Detours canon, comprised material hailing from the cancelled Star Wars Detours animated series. And finally, N-canon, or non-canon, obviously comprised what-if concepts and dead-end material made entirely for fun. The majority of the expanded universe most old-school diehards swear by is actually deemed third-tier C-canon by George, and as such, he was planning to knock a handful of it down to S or N-canon so as to snatch the character of Darth Talon from her place on the timeline well over 100 years post-Battle of Yavin, and instead have her feature in his sequel trilogy alongside Darth Maul set 5 to 10 years after Return of the Jedi. All this is to say that a universe of the multiverse should be solely devoted to the expanded universe's T-canon, as G-canon wouldn't account for Maul's survival, which occurred within the Clone Wars show. As we are granting T-canon its own universe, let's also toss in those 50-odd Underworld completed scripts written by George Lucas too, since, had they been more cost-effective, George had planned for them to join Clone Wars as a show within said canon tier. But depending on the content of those scripts, maybe they could slot in multiple universes. And sure, even though I couldn't give less of a fuck about Detours, let's also devote a universe to that too, as another favor to George. And the goofy Marvel Comics run, the awful holiday special, and those Ewok and Droids animated movies can each get their own universes too. Fuck it. So now that I've potentially pissed off the expanded universe fans by revealing George to not be as beholden to the EU's lore as a lot of them think, it's time to suggest an idea that'll piss off the newer Disney canon fans just to rack up those dislikes for my Infinity Gauntlet. I think Lucasfilm should keep the current Disney publishing initiative separate from their cinematic projects within this multiverse, in 2 distinct universes. hear me out. There's already several instances of inconsistencies between the two mediums that Disney fans struggle to make sense of, such as inconsistencies regarding the plot lines of the Ahsoka novel and the Resolve episode of Tales of the Jedi, and the inconsistencies of Cassian Andor's reprogramming and partnership of K2SO within the Cassian and K2SO comic special and the Welcome to the Rebellion episode of the Andor TV series, among several others too. If Disney's publishing and cinematic projects were separated, not only would the books and comics not need to worry about whatever occurs within the movies and shows, and vice versa, but they can purposely deviate in interesting ways to open up more possibilities without fear of upsetting pre-established continuity. This could also allow Lucasfilm to cinematically adapt iterations of fan-favorite stories originating from their publishing initiative, and possibly even scenes from video games, without feeling required to copy the source material word for word, lest they upset the overarching canon. Personally, I'd love to see an animated Clone Wars-esque series set between the time jumps of the original trilogy, eventually depicting Darth Vader hiring Boba Fett to ascertain Luke's true identity as his son. The Transformers actually enacted this idea in the 80s, allowing their hit cartoon and later Marvel Comics line to tell stories in separate continuities to great success. In fact, many of the ideas, lore, and characters introduced in the comics ultimately became important staples of the franchise going forward to modern day. Anyway, the amount of universes to fill the multiverse, both already established and not yet conceived, is infinite. Universes could even be created for each of Shakti's death scenes. A final note I'd like to bring up before moving on is that this idea would also solve the dilemma of expanded universe fans repeatedly holding the Disney canon to task on decanonized elements established prior to the Disney acquisition of the franchise, such as Ki-Adi-Mundi's age and Darth Plagueis' backstory. So let's say Lucasfilm announces the installation of a multiverse. Where should they go from there? Well, my suggestion would be for them to begin churning out material set in each of the different eras within the Star Wars franchise, all within the most popular universes, so as to chart, through sales and online buzz, exactly which eras and universes fans want them expending their storytelling efforts. Since we've already run through the various universes, let me briefly run through the various eras established as well. There's the dawn of the Jedi era, set over 25,000 years prior to the prequel films. The Old Republic era, set 100 or so years after that. The High Republic era, set just under 500 years before the prequels. The prequel era, the original trilogy era, the sequel era, and the legacy era, set a tad under 100 years post-sequels. The less profitable eras and universes shouldn't be abandoned for all time, but I think more obscure, dicey, and experimental projects and ideas should be held off until the franchise regains its positive fan reception, status, and profits. After all, it's not like the MCU put out Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man during their initial phase. Cartoon Network employed a similar strategy from the late 90s to early 2000s, leading to their golden age of programming, when lead programmer Mike Lazo greenlit a show called Cartoon Cartoons, showcasing animated segments of numerous proposed show pitches, with the most popular being chosen to become full series for the network. From this initiative, we got gold such as Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel, The Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Codename Kids Next Door, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, among several others. As far as making additional content for the expanded universe, since that fanbase tends to be pro-AI, and given that Disney is now encouraging fan-made AI content, I'd suggest they rely upon that fanbase to recreate and expand upon EU content through AI, and promote polls for the base to vote on which projects should be added to the canon. give that entire universe to the fans, apart from select professional writers like Timothy Zahn and James Luceno that have already established themselves as expanded universe royalty, having previously created some of the most beloved content for that continuity. Before moving on to my specific plot-related storytelling suggestion for the future, let me make a bid to regain those expanded universe fans back to my side. Given that Disney's canon has barely touched on the Old Republic era at all, having chosen instead to fill out their High Republic era, I would recommend for Lucasfilm to recanonize all expanded universe Old Republic content, having all of it join the ranks of the initial 6 movies and first 6 seasons of Clone Wars as being a part of both expanded universe and Disney canons. I would further recommend announcing this alongside the release of the upcoming Fate of the Old Republic video game and long-in-development remake of the fan-favorite Knights of the Old Republic game. At the very least, Lucasfilm should add the Old Republic video games to current Disney canon, given that the Old Republic MMO is not only still running, but also receiving continuous updates and downloadable content. Okay. Now it's finally time to talk specifics about this pitch. But really quick, I gotta state the disclaimer that, though I personally hate the sequel trilogy, and never liked it since the moment I watched The Force Awakens, even prior to seeing the Disney hate mob that formed well afterward, I think it becoming decanonized is a near impossibility, so I'm not even going to entertain that line of thinking, at least for the time being. It's simply unproductive. But anyway, on to the pitch. So for a long time, my playful sequel trilogy redo pitch idea I would share with friends had been an adaptation of the Yuuzhan Vong War with an overarching Emperor-esque Abeloth twist at the end. And a couple years ago, I would have suggested swapping characters around and retooling the pitch to turn it into a storyline pathway beyond the sequel trilogy. But given that it appears that Ahsoka Season 2 seems to be doing an Abeloth storyline well before the events of even the sequel trilogy, I think I need to drop her from my pitch and allow the Yuuzhan Vong War to stand on its own. And honestly, I think it can. Just for reference, to those not in the know, the Yuuzhan Vong were a nomadic alien species from a distant galaxy, bearing some level of Force immunity, and often considered religious zealots due to their views on technology as blasphemy. In the expanded universe, the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the known galaxy, which quickly escalated into a full-scale war, nearly destroying the New Republic, and were responsible for the deaths of over 300 trillion sentient beings. This war was massive, spanning 17 novels, 2 short stories, and a novella, all comprising the new Jedi Order publishing initiative, and as such, though there is absolutely enough material to make a fast-paced, action-packed trilogy, there would be so much material that would need to be cut for the sake of time, which would leave many hardcore fans disappointed. But without going into the nitty-gritty specifics of a Yuuzhan Vong War movie trilogy pitch, as that would be a video all of its own that I'll be happy to make if this video does well, I'll outline my rough solution to this dilemma. So each of the 3 Star Wars film trilogies we have so far all began in the midst of an ongoing conflict, so they can hit the ground running with as little build-up as possible, utilizing brief opening crawls to summarize what came before, and only later, after the release of said films, would they flesh out the preamble events within supplementary material. For my proposal, though, I'd do something a little different. Instead, I'd precede this Yuuzhan Vong War film trilogy with a television initiative, not unlike the Mandalorian era, set some years after the sequel trilogy, organizing the characters available into some semblance of the key factions depicted in the expanded universe version of the conflict, such as the rise of a new Jedi Order, Boba Fett or Din Djarin becoming the head of a unified Mandalorian force, etc., and ultimately culminating with the Yuuzhan Vong Force's initial invasion of the galaxy and the beginning of the larger war. And if Lucasfilm doesn't separate their publishing initiative from their cinematic offerings, like I previously suggested, and I assume they won't, the books and comics and such can also tie in, turning the Yuuzhan Vong War Prelude into a multimedia crossover. This would alter the opening crawl of the initial movie in the trilogy from a quick information dump of new material to a recap of the key moments from the Disney Plus offerings for those that either didn't or couldn't watch, or those that need a refresher. Nothing would really change too much from the Lucas-era mainstay films other than the events of the opening crawl being familiar to viewers of the Disney Plus shows. The format of the movies themselves would remain the same, easily accessible to all viewers, regardless of previous knowledge on the franchise. Basically, my idea would be akin to if the bulk of the Clone Wars animated series, which most people considered to have retroactively smoothed out the wrinkles of the prequels, was released prior to Revenge of the Sith instead of years after. Before I conclude this video, I wish to throw out one final suggestion that I know will be divisive. Depicting a spirit world as a home location for Force ghosts and other such corporeal beings when not interacting with the physical plane. I know a lot of you are scrolling down to begin typing your angry comments, but please, if you will, allow me to explain. Force Ghost Yoda in The Last Jedi, interacting with the physical world when conjuring Force lightning to burn down the tree supposedly housing the sacred Jedi texts, has already muddied the waters on the rules of Force ghosts. And due to the minuscule likelihood of Lucasfilm decanonizing that, I say, instead of dancing around that plot point, we instead trudge forward and flesh out some lore regarding Force ghosts. Where do they go when they aren't appearing on the physical plane? Exactly how much power to affect said physical plane do they possess? How strong are they? Why don't they take advantage of their corporeal bodies to continue opposing the forces of evil from taking hold in the world? Why are certain planets and locations more Force-sensitive than others? Have there been Force ghosts prior to Qui-Gon? Are there additional methods to becoming a Force ghost? If so, have any Siths ever become Force ghosts after death? Is there a limit to how long they can appear in the physical plane, like in the expanded universe? And those questions aren't even getting into the mysteries of the Mortis gods and their own connections to Force ghosts, which will hopefully be touched upon in Ahsoka's second season, given rumors of Anakin becoming the new father. Now, I'm not saying to jam this lore into my Yuuzhan Vong War film trilogy suggestion, or even introducing it in the Prelude material. In fact, I'd bank it for an even later storyline. Maybe Plagueis' death at the hands of Palpatine was premeditated as a step toward a larger plot beyond the physical plane. Maybe, just maybe, Plagueis, in his infinite wisdom and scheming, found a way to become a dark Force ghost to slowly infect the spiritual plane over a long stretch of time, assuming time even works the same way it does here in the physical plane. He will have stroked Palpatine's lust for power, leading to his apprentice cutting him down and taking control of the galaxy, while he himself ascends to the corporeal plane to corrupt the spiritual plane. A total victory for evil. In fact, maybe Palpatine's miscalculation regarding Anakin, which ultimately led to his own death, and therefore liberation of the galaxy on the physical plane, is the only reason Plagueis' total corruption is able to be stopped. Let's be honest, this idea is totally something Filoni would do with the lore, and it'd also be a great opportunity to highlight Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Qui-Gon, Leia, and now Father of the Force Anakin in major roles even after death. So there you have it. What do you guys think? I understand a lot of you feel burned by Disney and believe the only hope for the brand is for the company to sell the franchise off to someone else that'll reinstate the expanded universe canon. But I want to remind you that even that had ridiculous elements, even if the larger whole of it was loads of fun. There was an anthropomorphic green rabbit named Jackson running around in Han Solo's circles in the Star Wars underworld based on Bugs Bunny. There was Jar Jar Binks' father George shooting himself in the head after being driven to suicide due to his son's annoyingness. There was Ral Rachin, a Wookiee essentially able to speak basic due to a speech impediment of all things. There was the instance of Luke falling in love with the spirit of Callista Ming, a Clone Wars-era Jedi that had bonded to the computer of an Imperial dreadnought. There was R5-D4, a Force-sensitive droid, and many other bonkers ideas nestled firmly under the expanded universe banner. Though I implore you all to keep things civil in the comments section, as we are all fans of the franchise at the end of the day, I would really like to hear feedback on this pitch, and I'd love to hear your own ideas too, whether you wish to build on what I've laid out or construct counter-ideas on which direction the brand should go. I'd like to know too whether or not you guys would like me to put a more specific outline together on my Yuuzhan Vong War film trilogy idea, which I'd be more than happy to throw together if the interest is there. Also, I just want to throw out another reminder to please, if you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to the channel to help support my humble one-man operation here in the algorithm. And finally, if you are interested in seeing a video like this for a DC Cinematic Universe, then click on the video that just popped up, or alternatively click on the video below it to view my suggestion on how the MCU should approach the upcoming mutant saga. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao, younglings.